Hello, my name is Adam, and welcome to Tell Me About Your Game, the podcast where I invite people on to tell me about their tabletop RPG games, their sessions, their campaigns, their characters, their homebrewed worlds. We're talking D&D, Pathfinder, Fate, Powered by the Apocalypse games, Starfinder, and many others. These people are not celebrities or big industry insiders, they're just people who love a game. If you're playing it, I want to hear about it, and if you clicked on this podcast, maybe you want to hear about them too. All right, cool. Okay. So yeah, I am here with Domille of Domille's Wondrous Works. You may have seen her on Twitter, famous for the phased battle maps that are sweeping the nation. Dom, do you want to give a little intro to yourself and what we'll be talking about today?
Yeah, I didn't know I was supposed to do an intro. Panic.
You can just say what you like, who you are, and what you do. Like it doesn't have to be clever. I promise.
Right. Well, I am a cartographer. I create phased battle maps, mostly in fantasy style. Phased battle maps are battle maps that evolve with the encounter. I came up with the concept a couple years ago, and now it's picking up more speed through the TTRPG community, which I'm super happy to see. Yeah, and we're going to be talking, I guess, about my world, which I had to go through my notes last night about my world. I have a world anvil set up for it, and then I have like a written notebook for it, and then I have files on my computer about it. And it is far more complicated than I remember.
That's how it usually goes. It kind of builds in the telling. What's the name of your world?
So it's Sylvestrus realms. And there's two continents. And don't ask me what the names are because I don't remember.
Have you gotten a chance to play in this world yet, or is it kind of still in the planning
Oh yeah,
stages?
we've played it a bunch. So there's actually been 3 campaigns that I have started in the world. None of them are finished.
Oh, that's just the a day in the life of a DM, you
Yeah,
know.
the first campaign in that world, we actually played it for a year or something, I think. And the second campaign, I think we only had 1 game. And the
Oh God.
third I ran for probably about 6 months. And then I went full time on Patreon, and my free time no longer exists. So
Yeah, you're highly allergic to free time in my experience. Is what
yeah,
it's
pretty
always
much.
been. You're like free time? No, I don't want any of that. I'm going to fill up my
Yeah.
schedule. Sylvestrus?
Sylvestrus
Okay.
realms. I don't know why I came up with. I think it may have been one of those random name generators that named my world.
Those things are a godsend, all
They
right.
are. I actually would, before sessions, I would just go on a random generator and just create a bunch of names, guild names, like place names, just write them
Mm-hmm.
all down just in case I need to throw, because there's been some bad names that I've come up with on the spot.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to embarrass you, but I kind of want to hear about that.
I had a NPC named Car.
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 That's amazing. But you know what? Actually, I think that's okay. Because you know what? In the real world, things are named ridiculous things. Like there's like the classic example I think is the River Avon, which in I think Old Celtic in England Avon means river, so it's the river.
Or like the grizzly bear, I think. It's the barest bear because in Latin or something.
Yeah. The horrible
The
bear or
horrible, yeah,
something
the
like that.
horrible bear.
Yeah, exactly. So like, the thing is, we're storytellers, and we like for the things that we name to be relevant and to feel right. In real life, they just write whatever pops into their head down at the moment. If you're an explorer and you're going through the wilderness and you said, I'm going to name that after my mother-in-law because she is a damn fine lady. And, that's all there is to it. In real life, there doesn't have to be this big storied. See, this is, like landmarks and stuff like that are elements in a game. So you want them to like sort of reinforce whatever point it is that you're making with your story or however you want your players to feel and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we overthink things. So yeah, you got a dude named Carr.
It was a woman. Yeah.
You got a woman named Carr. I did the thing. I did the white boy thing where I assume everybody is a man. I did it.
It's okay.
I did it, and I'm
I mean,
ashamed.
with the name like Carr, I feel like
Yeah,
it screams maybe not, but yes, it was a
yeah. My name is Carr, but you can call me Hot Rod.
Yep.
That's terrible. All right, so you said you've got two continents in Sylvestrus realms.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the idea behind these two continents? What's their deals?
Well,
you don't have to name them. I won't make you name them.
So the entire world is, oh boy, where do I start?
That's the question, right?
So basically, one of the continents is kind of it is a bit more established because that's where most of the games took place. But then when I
Mm,
decided to run the campaign that only had one game, I created.
yep.
I knew that there was going to be another continent, but I that's when I really went and fleshed it out. Not entirely, of course, because it's a huge world.
Mhm.
But that one's a little bit less. We haven't played in it as much. Although I do think that the story hook of the second continent is interesting in that it started having this black ash falling everywhere on the continent, just on that continent, out of the blue. And when it landed on some people, it made them sick. But only some people, so it would fall everywhere, and then some people would get really, really sick from it.
Mhm.
And there is a magic to it and stuff like that. And I think what ended up happening was that the ash was like fallen souls, and it only infected those that know loss or something like that.
Oh
Although,
wow,
yeah, and I should have
that's some
remembered.
gothic horror stuff right there.
Yeah, it's I I don't remember why or why I came up with that concept, but I thought it was an interesting.
Oh, I mean, who knows where ideas come from?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I put into my games is just like, "Oh, that's a cool thing I saw online. I'm gonna put that in my game." So it's like 95% of the stuff that I put in my games is like, "Oh yeah, that's a cool thing. Let me, finagle it into my world somehow." So probably something I saw online.
Yeah, that's the best part I think about your homebrew worlds and stuff like that is that copyright law doesn't apply
Yeah.
or trademark law doesn't apply.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
you could be like, I had a rat folk named Michael in one of my games, and oh, he talked like this,
Aw.
and all my bullyworks sound like Kermit the Frog, and it was great. And no, and fucking come at me, Disney. But okay, so your world. So, um, the Ashfall is an amazing idea, and was that the basis for the campaign that didn't really get off the ground, or?
Yeah, that was the basis for the campaign. We only had one game with it, and then again, free time doesn't exist for me, so that was
Yeah,
abandoned. I was like, man, I gotta create all of these things, and so my players were finally like, They were waiting. They were waiting. I was like, listen,
Mm,
guys, I'm just struggling with time. And they were like, okay, how about we take the world, the other continent that we played on, and just replay the first campaign essentially because we just want to play and we want you to DM. And I was like, okay, fine, that one's already fleshed out, there's a lot of content there. And so we
mhm,
did that instead. It actually turned out well. We stopped, but
mm.
it turned out really interesting because it essentially came out like it was a parallel universe. And they most of them played the same characters as they did with campaign one, but some things were different. So, for example, a person that was really, really poor in the last campaign, and this one was actually really rich.
Oh,
Um,
that's really cool.
yeah. And so I made these little adjustments to the world. It was a really interesting thing for me, at least.
Car was there, but she was named Bicycle.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a really great way of handling that sort of situation because I've often been like, okay, maybe I want to run this thing again. I want to run a game that I have run previously again in my world. But does that ruin the integrity of the world? It's like this isn't Forgotten Realms. This is a home world that I made up that is formed by the actions of my players. And so if I say that one of those interactions, one of those games, those events in history are not canon, does that like ruin the integrity of the world? But then you make it into like a funky alternate realm dimensional thing, and that kind of cures that ill.
Yeah, it was a really interesting experiment, and I'm really a fan of the way it came out in the end. I hope to still pick it up one day. I already said that, but
Okay, so Continent 2, where you only had one game, and so that means that nobody really discovered what the nature behind the Ashfall was?
no, they didn't. And some of my players are on my Patreon, so when I post this, I'm gonna have to be like, do not listen to this.
Okay, Dom's players, spoilers ahead. So, um, be ye warned and fuck off. No, I'm sorry. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll leave out the fuck off part. I don't know.
Hey, are we allowed to cuss?
I fucking
I
hope
was trying
so. Yeah.
I
Okay.
was trying to be good.
So yeah, that was that. My next question was going to be basically. So if the first continent is more developed, what's the story there? Like, does it have individual countries? Does it have like an overarching plot or theme?
There is a lot.
There's a lot. Well, the
Yeah.
continent, yeah.
Yeah, there is a lot, and the first continent story is very much more of a story of the whole world because it kind of applies to everything. So,
Hmm.
5,000 years ago, their timeline essentially started with something that's called Goroth Uflith. I don't know. Um, but it essentially in Draconic, Goroth means after, and then nobody knows what Uflith is.
Oh my god! So it's like okay, it's like if you measure your calendar by like the birth of Christ, except nobody knows who Christ is, so everybody's like, what does this mean? It was apparently very important.
Yeah, nobody actually knows why are we measuring the time from this thing. But yeah, and so it kind of all sort of starts from that. And what it essentially was a big war between gods of the world, where one of the good gods ended up falling, but there were three dragons that were fighting with them, and when she died, she imbued these guardian dragons with her power, and they became guardians. They won the war and they became guardians of this world, and they're called Uflith. But
Oh.
then once they defeated the other bad gods, they kind of put them away. They didn't kill them.
Hmm.
They were drained from the power, and so they went into slumber and have been in slumber since then, which is why they've become forgotten since that happened. And then
You got that dangling over your players' heads. You can use that whenever.
Yeah, but they don't know, just like the rest of the people in the
Exactly, yeah.
world, they don't know what Uflith is. And then
Secret hidden lore. Yeah.
yeah, and then essentially the players were, I forgot what they called them. They're like, warriors of Uflith or something like that, where they
Mhm.
are the chosen ones to bring Uflith back to the world. And that's because the old gods that were fighting, the bad ones, are trying to break back in again. And so
Mhm.
they're tasked with this role of waking them up again. Sure. The
Yee.
the 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 dragons, uh not the
Mhm.
bad guys. I don't know. Am
Yeah.
I making sense?
No, yeah. I'm there with you.
Uh,
What are the dragon steels? Are they all good guys?
yeah, the three dragons are essentially guardians of the realm, and they are good, and they will do everything that's needed to protect the world, except that they're asleep and they don't know what's going on. um
Just like me most of the time.
yeah. So that was the focus of the first campaign. And then the third campaign that took place on the same continent, things kind of changed up a little bit. And I, for whatever reason, I really like gods and making making lore with gods and everything that surrounds. They're so,
It's a lot of people's first stop on the way to like homebrew worlddom.
yeah, I think so.
So what was with the gods? I want to hear about the gods now.
Well, so the third campaign that I started, I actually decided that for the third campaign, instead of just kind of making my own story and players be within that story, I took the players' stories and then weaved them into the world instead.
Mm,
So
mhm.
I based this parallel universe world on the players themselves and where they would go with all of their adventures and whatnot. And so again, there were gods, and there was a player who was playing a warlock, and so his patron he was pretty evil, but his patron was one of the gods that was trying to basically take over again. Yeah, he killed one of the other gods, and
Yeah, that's he doesn't play nice with the other gods.
no.
It's good that you could use the warlock as a hook into that entire plot right there, because you could end up getting the party to help the evil gods to come back, and it's a tragic story.
Yeah, and
Mm.
the player who I don't like running evil campaigns at all. I just
Mhm.
I always tell my players, like, no, don't do that. But with this specific player, he is so good at playing just general RP and storytelling, that I really, really trusted him to play this really evil
Mm.
character where, you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell that he's evil because he's so charismatic and oh yeah, of course I'll help you, here, just, take my
Yeah,
money.
people read evil character to be basically like, I'm like the Joker all the time, and I'm just blowing things up and killing children. And it's like, it's not really like that. Like, you can play it way more subtly than that. It's more like, I have my own motivations, and I don't care who gets in the way. I am going to fulfill those motivations. I would love to try to someday play like a not a chaotic character, but like maybe like a lawful evil character. I have this character lined up. It's this concept, right? It's now we're talking about me. But he's an evil assassin basically from this clan of assassins. And the idea is that the goofiest, jokiest character that one of my friends comes up with, I am going to have this assassin owe them a life debt. And so the character that he has a life debt to might be good because of the rules of his clan, the evil guy has to protect him and has to help him with his goals because he like saved the matriarch of the clan or something like that.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's a fun way to play it because you don't have to like the people that you're there with. You just have to have goals that align. You can be evil, have goals that align.
I think it's also very, very. It's very difficult to play maybe an evil character, but that's not entirely evil, or maybe a gray character. It's not an
Mm-hmm.
easy task, and
That's true.
I mean, like that. Felrug was the player character that I was talking about, and the player himself, he has mastered the gray. He does a really, really good job of it. And
Mm-hmm.
even in the games when I try to come up with a villain, sometimes it's fun to make the villain not be all that villain, but then it's difficult. Okay, well, he's still got to be evil, and it's hard. I don't know. I find it one of the more challenging things.
Yeah. See, being an evil character is something I'd like to try. I don't know if I'd like to live there.
Mm,
Um, as at the end of the day, I play these games because I want to play a hero who does good things and can affect positive change in their surroundings, which, I think says an awful lot about the world that we live in, that I need to go to a tabletop game with rolling dice in order to get that feeling.
yeah,
Not to bring it down and make it too real or anything.
yeah.
So how closely did the parallel universe campaign mirror, if you'll pardon the pun, the original campaign? How much was it the same? How much was it different?
It ended up being very, very different in the end. It started off pretty similar, but then it just took off in a completely different direction. Although there was one of the storylines that I continued from the first campaign, but I just thought it was an interesting story that I really wanted to explore. And it was the story of this mage that there was a war going on, and this mage essentially was one of the more powerful people in this world, and his side was losing the war, and he somehow channeled so much power that he wiped out pretty much all of the forces that were fighting them, but then disappeared himself, leaving behind his staff that would just hang in the air in one place. And when people checked the staff, they couldn't detect any magic, they couldn't detect anything about the staff or anything abnormal, and yet it just hung in the air forever. Nobody could move it away or anything like that. And so that story, I decided that it was interesting enough to be brought forward to the parallel universe as well.
Mm-hmm. So that's part of the lore in both universes. Did anything ever come of that story, or is it just sort of like has it just been functioning as sort of like this background piece?
It kind of did. It gave them a bit of a direction, because essentially what happened to that mage is that because of the amount of power that he used, his consciousness got spread throughout like different worlds and different universes. And the bits that remained became kind of crazy. And so the players found an item that allowed them to connect to one of the scattered bits of the mage. And so that mage kind of guided them through some of the stuff that they needed to do and bring
So
back.
he really, really gave them a piece of his mind, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Okay, so that's it. So he's basically an interesting and strange NPC with a lot of like cool insider knowledge and stuff because it's just like a piece of him. So it's like a broken personality.
Yeah,
Oh man,
exactly.
how did you play that? Like, if I asked him a question, what would it be? What would the answer be like? Would he just like answer normally, or would it just be like all kinds of like strange?
It could be anything. He could entirely just give you an answer straight up. The answer could be crazy, and unbelievable, but it could be true, or it could be false, or it could be just a part of the information that they needed that may or may not make sense to them. Or
Hmm.
or, or just, crazy talk that made no sense whatsoever.
Oh, wow. I'm just thinking of all the things you could do with that. Oh, that's so cool. That's a great NPC right there.
Yeah, I don't know. I was proud of that one. And
Yeah.
we to this day, my husband and I, so we stopped that campaign coming up on a year in December.
Hmm.
But that NPC, his like tagline was to say, "Listen." And to this day, my husband and I say that to each other.
Listen.
Listen. And it's, I don't know, it just yeah, it
I
got
like how
me.
it becomes part of that. How it becomes part of your daily, as in joke from the game becomes part of your daily interaction.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
I really like that one NPC and his storyline. I think that once we pick up the campaign again, I'll be curious to see where they take it, because I also give my players pretty much, they define what happens. They define
Hmm.
the world around them and their choices. So everything, that's why the worlds become so much different and their stories become so much different from the first campaign, because all of their choices were different. The stories become different, the characters themselves have become different because of their choices, and also my players are amazing. Most of us don't even, well, maybe not most of us, but a lot of us don't even like combat. We just focus on RP primarily. And so they really focus on what kinds of choices do they make as these characters, choices that would actually make sense. Don't take the win if it doesn't make sense for the character. Take the L sometimes, because
Hmm.
that's what would happen to this character. Maybe they have some sort of a flaw that would not allow them to succeed and whatnot. And they're very, very good at following that. And that makes me, it's one of the best things to see sometimes, when you have this story happening, and then, sometimes as a DM, you just sit back and you just listen to the players play, and it's like the best feeling ever, because they take like 2 hours just among themselves. You don't even have to do anything anymore. And they just, they go into that RP, and it's like, it's so cool to see when that happens.
Makes you feel like you've really done your job right.
Yeah, it does. And then you just sit back too. Okay, I did what I had to do. I'm just gonna sit here
Yep.
and
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You just sit there, just like quietly beaming. Incidentally, that's basically how I deal with these interviews when people start talking about their stuff. I'm just like sitting back here, like the same way that you would do if your characters are they're believing the world, they're believing it, Peter, and they're just interacting with each other as though they're the characters and as though the world is going by. They're taking it so seriously, and it just yeah, no, I mean, like that's oh god, that's why I play it. And people should start a drinking game where they take a drink every time I say that's why I play the game for many different reasons.
yeah. And it's also really amazing to be, for me as a player, sometimes when I play, it's really cool to be a part of those moments as well.
Mm.
Not just as a DM. Like we had one of the players decided to DM after I tapped out, and he did this campaign where we had zero combat, no combat whatsoever. So it was 100%
Mhm.
RP. And there was this moment where, sometimes in games I feel like you kind of have to force RP, you kind of have to force like to move forward. Um,
Mhm.
but sometimes it happens so naturally. You don't have to force anything. You don't have to think about anything. The only thing that you have to do is just go with the flow, and it takes you to these amazing places. And one of those moments was, and granted, this is not about my world, but It was so cool that like I can't not bring it up. We had this session where each one of our characters had secrets. And you know how it goes. I don't know about your games, but characters usually have secrets, but then they never come up, or they come up in some really awkward way that's not super impactful, or you know, but in this case, all of our characters had these pretty impactful and deep secrets, and it just worked out organically so well, where all of our characters shared those secrets between each other. And it was this really natural flow of RP that you just cannot force. And it was so awesome to be a part of that.
Oh yeah, that's wonderful. It's like the big streamed shows. There's like these turning points where like the characters finally open up to each other. And I think like even like on recently on like Critical Role, there were secrets that characters carried until like the final episode, and stuff that they only actually got into in like the sort of like the post-mortem, the dissection episode. That's a really grim way of putting it. The fond look back episode. And so even them, they're designing these characters to be these dramatic inserts and everything like that. These professional actors are doing this, and even they don't get to it all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, to like it's almost like there's a race to see who can have their secret, like admit their secret to other people, sort of naturally, in a way that makes sense, not just like first episode, hey, by the way, I'm the secret heir to the giant golden empire over there, everybody wants me dead, what up, holler at me. But making sure it happens in a normal flow, versus the DM putting those hooks in. Who's going to get there first, who's going to act on the backstory first, the player or the DM?
Yeah. Yeah, but there's also times where I've done it where I set I set up a player to be
that was diabolical. I'm hooked. Okay, go ahead.
it's happened where I have set up, a player had actually several secrets, and I set it up where they kind of had to be revealed at some point. But it all worked out really well. So in the first campaign, one of my player characters was hunted by the basically authorities of the world, because the authorities believed that he killed his father-in-law, as well as his wife or something like that.
Oh wow.
And I started with being kind of subtle. The player character could change his appearance. And so when the party met the character, he looked like something other than what he actually looks like. But then throughout us playing, every now and then I would throw in, like a wanted poster with his actual image on the poster, but the party didn't know, because that's not what he looked like anymore, because he had the disguise going.
But he knew.
And so eventually it turned out that his wife actually was not dead, but
drama bomb.
yeah. The way it happened was, I already forgot why I'm talking about this. Oh, secret, right.
Yep.
All right.
That means it's good.
So essentially what happened was that the players at some point witnessed his wife being alive, but then she got murdered in front of them. So of course they didn't know that it was his wife. They were just like, oh, this person just got murdered in front of us. But the player character, the character that one of my players was playing, of course, knew that's his wife, that he thought was dead but was alive, but now is dead again. And So he kind of had to, they noticed that he was acting off, like, what's going on? Why are you acting weird? And so he had to tell them that that was his dead wife that is now dead again. But then, she came back to life again after that.
I get knocked down,
Yep.
but I get up again.
Yeah. Yep. But that whole storyline was, have you read The Picture of Dorian Gray?
I'm familiar with the storyline. I think probably I read the Cliff Notes when I was in high school at some point.
Well,
Um,
it's one of my favorite books, and so, like I said, I put stuff I like into my campaigns,
yeah,
and
do it.
I essentially made it that that whole storyline was based on that book, and in the end, his father-in-law ended up being kind of like Dorian Gray, where he had this picture hidden, magical, that would take all of the bad stuff on it while keeping the father-in-law alive. And then he ended up making one for his daughter as well, which is why she was dead, then alive, dead and alive, dead and alive again. But yeah, essentially the secret, eventually through that storyline, of course, the players found out that who the actual player was, because he couldn't hide anymore, and all of the stuff that
Mhm.
happened to him, and then they found out about his wife and all that. So yeah, secrets, I forgot how we got here. I don't.
Talking about inserting secrets into your or having your players have their own secrets and kind of how it affects the world. So, am I to presume that that player basically gave you the hook that they were wanted for the murder of their father-in-law and wife, and you kind of ran with it from there, or
Yeah.
was this? Yeah.
Yeah, it was in his backstory that he sent me that he was hiding from authorities because his father-in-law was dead, and his wife was dead, and they were blaming it on him, but it really wasn't him. And so yeah, and I was like, okay, well, where can I take this story? And I was like, oh yeah, Dorian Gray, the father is not actually dead, and she's also not actually dead.
So really, all three of them were framed. It's just two of them were literally framed
Yeah,
because.
yeah. There was like a cult or something.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't super remember what
the details.
who
Yeah.
actually killed them, but yeah, it was other people were hunting them for the knowledge, I think, that the father had.
Because that's low key, that's lich stuff right there.
Yeah, they were the ones. This cult, I think, were the ones who killed both of them or tried to kill both of them, but failed. Um, so yeah,
Hmm.
the player character himself was innocent, at least in that aspect.
I've never thought of inserting Dorian Gray into stuff, but I do love the concept. And like I said, it is basically, it's like almost exactly a lich, except, the person in question is young and hot instead of a gross old monster.
Yeah, I don't think I brought that into the game. It was more just the concept of this portrait taking on the damage that the person should be.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then the father actually made the portrait for the daughter in secret, so she didn't even
She didn't
know.
even know.
Yeah, she didn't have, so when she died and then woke up again, she was like, what's happening?
Well, apparently I'm immortal now.
Yep,
I always suspected it would happen someday.
yep.
I was wondering if you happen to have a D100 or percentile dice, because usually at around this point in the interview, I like to start rolling on the D100 random questions table.
I wish I should have gotten my dice. I do have dice. I never get to use them. My husband is my savior. He got me dice. Real life dice. Now, if I only remember how to actually roll them. All right, let's see. Here we go. 77.
77. I should probably get that D100 table up in front of me if we're going to do this today. This one, okay, yeah. So this question comes from, I hope I'm saying this right. It's Natasha Enser, Natasha. It's Brambleberry on Twitter.
Mhm.
What annual festival is most anticipated in your world? Are there big holidays?
Oh man, I have a whole calendar of stuff that
Yeah.
happens every, yeah. I don't
Okay. What are the
know
big
I
ones?
don't know where the calendar is.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But there is an equivalent of Christmas. I know that because I ran a Christmas one shot for them. Um, one of the events that happens every year is gods, essentially, gods in my game, duh.
Yeah, I
Um,
know God. Yeah, gods.
they hold this battle match between some of their favorite champions of the world. And so one of the times that, you know, we were playing, I decided to run this. I think this may have been the Christmas event that we did. Basically, all the characters get picked up by the gods and dropped into a giant arena where they just fight it out amongst themselves. So it was like a big PvP
You to
event.
do big old battle royale. Yeah.
Yeah, and because it's, gods and
Yeah.
reasons, they don't necessarily remember what happens, and nothing that happens there is final. So for example, if they kill another player, they don't actually kill them. So that we just wanted to do it for fun, not for serious consequences.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so yeah, they got teleported. They whooped each other's asses, and it was really, really fun. And then they got teleported back into the world.
Merry Christmas, Fireball.
Yeah, and didn't remember anything that happened from that event. The characters didn't remember what happened. Then
Did who won? I gotta know.
it was the bard.
It was the Bard one.
Yeah, the bard whooped their butts. It was almost no contest.
Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I did not see that one coming, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it was a really interesting thing to do, to see them fight each other. It was really, really cool. But there's also kind of an equivalent of Halloween in that world of called something else, which I don't remember. And I did a one shot, or rather, it was more like a 5 shot, for
Yeah,
them.
that's how it goes.
Yeah, for that as well. It was really fun. So yeah,
Mm.
like Halloween and Christmas are my favorite holidays, so, I
Hmm.
gotta plug that in.
Absolutely. And it is a good excuse to do like a themed one shot on holidays or around holidays, because who doesn't love that?
Yeah.
My wife ran one that was inspired by, I think, in equal measure. Okay, so she ran a Christmas Carol one year, and she ran another one that was, it was a mixture of, it's like a mix of like the Santa Claus slash, no, it wasn't the Santa Claus, it was Gremlins. Um,
Oh,
'cause it's,
nice. I love
yeah,
Gremlins.
yeah, yeah. And a whole bunch of other stuff, and it was really great. And Krampus was there, and it was real fun. She loves doing the Christmas one shot. She's our go-to Christmas one shot person.
I love doing Christmas stuff. Yeah, Krampus was also present during the Battle Royale one. It made no sense really why it was a Christmas thing, but it was. I don't know.
It's one of those things where it's like an in joke that your players will get, but the characters won't get.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Would you like to roll for another question?
Oh, yeah, sure. All right.
Yeah, sure. I like to do a couple of them, just for fun.
Okay. I like it. 98.
98. Okay. All right. So this one comes from Trenchcoat K. That's Trenchcoat Kobold on Twitter.
Mhm.
It's, what is your favorite character in the world and what makes them great? It could be player character, although maybe you don't want to do that because it's like choosing between children and stuff
I
like that.
know.
Or like your favorite NPC. We've already touched on your broken spirited mage, and of course everybody's favorite NPC, the one true NPC to end them all, Car.
Yep.
But do you have any other like major NPCs that like really sort of like tickle your fancy?
There is one that I can think of, but it's more like she never really played too much. Oh man, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, but there's that and that one, also this one.
It's tough, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this it literally is your excuse to go hog wild and just
I
talk about
know.
whatever you want to talk about. So like, be as specific as you want.
Oh
Um,
man. Oh, okay. Okay, I got one. I got another one. Um,
okay.
there is an NPC that is secretly a god. I mean, duh, gods in my world.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. God's in your world.
um, that is based on the, I think it's the Chinese monkey god.
Oh.
And he's like this trickster god that sometimes, every now and then, just kind of jumps into the campaign to mess around and kind of prank the players. And he has a pet cloud that he rides on, and he lost that pet cloud, and the players were tasked to find it. And yeah, so he's like this goofy guy, and of course, the players don't know that he's an actual god.
Again, go away, Dom's players.
Yeah. But yeah, he is like this goofy guy that you would never really think that is actually incredibly crazy powerful. A little bit crazy. I like crazy gods. I think the idea of this incredibly powerful creature entity combined with them not being all there is kind of interesting. So
Yeah, they're not just big tough humans with a lot of power. They're something else.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so this guy, he lives in a hut in the woods, and he likes to make cake for passerbys, and the cake, oh man, the cake gives them weird, like the cake makes weird things happen with them.
Hmm.
So if they ate the cake, they would have to roll, I think, 2d6 to figure out, because it essentially makes them grow body parts out of other body
What?
parts.
Well, I mean, we're talking to trickster god here, so it
Yeah,
makes perfect sense.
yeah,
In the amount of sense it doesn't make.
it's temporary because
Oh,
eventually, the extra limbs or whatever fall off. But yeah,
okay.
there are some weird things that happened with some strange things growing out of other strange things.
So don't go to this guy asking for him to give you a hand because he literally will.
Yeah, he literally
Um,
will. Yep. Yeah, so it's, I don't know, this really goofy, weird character that makes people do weird stuff. So
and they don't know that he's secretly a god.
no,
Like that hanging out in the corner in a party meme. They don't know I'm secretly a god.
yeah, exactly. And I think that eventually, once we get to a deeper part of the campaign, I think that that god will come more into its power, where they probably will need him for something or some such. Where it will get revealed that he's a god. But as of right now, he's just a really goofy, weird character, and I like it.
That's always the ones you least expect.
Yeah, hopefully. They all probably know. They're behind my back. They're like, Dom thinks she's so smart. Dumbass.
So yeah, in the interview with Ares, we were talking about how it's usually the trickster gods who are like the most upfront and in contact with humanity, or mortality, I suppose, because we haven't really touched on sort of like the makeup of your world in terms of like, are humans common, are elves common, what are we looking at there? But yeah, the trickster gods are usually sort of like the bridge between humanity and divinity in that sense. They're the most likely to have some sort of contact with the mortal realm.
That is
Um,
true. Honestly, never even really truly considered that, but yeah, you're totally right.
yeah, and so it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It will in retrospect. People like they will find you reveal this to them, they will find like, oh my god, that makes so much sense about X or so much sense about Y.
Yeah.
What is the story with the sort of biological makeup of the world?
It depends on where you are in the world. The kingdom where the players started the campaign is very much diverse. There's all kinds of people, races, nationalities, and whatnot that live there from all over the world. But their neighboring kingdom, with whom they've had lots of wars, is not like that at all. There's only elves, and if you're not an elf, you're basically a lower class person.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Oof.
which is why they've been fighting them, because the kingdom where they started do not like that kind of approach
Hmm.
to treating people. And then there is Dwarven Kingdom that's to the north of them, and I actually don't have a whole lot of lore for them yet, so I
Well,
don't know.
these things you flesh out when your characters get there. Otherwise, you literally have to like be generating an entire world in your head at all times and all of the events that happen there.
Yeah,
Yeah, just render distance style world building.
yep, exactly.
You know,
It's like,
yeah,
oh, some happened in that world. Yes, there was a war and
and
gods.
gods and your world and
Oh,
gods.
yep.
Uh, should you like to roll for one last question?
Yeah. Yeah, the
Okay.
questions are fun. I like them.
Yeah, I've been thinking about moving them up a little bit, like having them happen earlier in the podcast because they always generate interesting conversation that then kind of spirals outward. But
Yeah,
yeah, we'll
I'm
see.
a
We'll see what
fan.
happens.
I really like it. Okay, it's 89. I'm rolling high
You are rolling
today.
high today. What? Okay. All right. Sorry. No, I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to pronounce this because it's this comes to us from VNDCTVJKBX.
Yeah, no, I
It's Vindictive Jukebox with all of the vowels removed, but it took me a second. All right, so Vindictive Jukebox, your Twitter username is a nightmare, but we love you. What technology exists? What's the technology level of the world at large? Is it all based off of magic? Is it completely mundane in Middle Ages? Is it more advanced than that?
it's a good question. The world where the area where they started out in is very much kind of classic fantasy where they might have guns, but
They might have guns.
that's that's about it. But then if you venture out further away, there's things like, flying ships and stuff like that, but it's all still powered by magic. So there
Mhm.
isn't there isn't really a whole lot of technology in that world, like as technology as we know it. Maybe
Technology as in our earthly technology, but
yeah.
I would say that utilization of magic for like general purpose stuff, that's a form of technology because it's just using the available resources that you have to change life for the better or for the worse, depending on who but whatever about that.
Yeah, I could see that. It's Yeah, so it's all really just magic based and magic powered, but yeah, there's things like trains and
Mhm.
airships and stuff like that. Airships are fun. I don't even know why. For some, as a cartographer, this is a complete like departure from the conversation.
That's cool.
But as a cartographer, you kind of throughout time, as you do it more and more, you realize what kind of maps people want. And people love any kind of ship, whether it's an airship or like, regular boat or whatever. And I don't necessarily know why. I know I love airships. Why do I love airships? I don't know. They're fascinating.
They're very fantasy. They're not something that ever really actually existed in the real world in that way. Like we got airplanes, zeppelins probably are what got us the closest to it, but it just screams fantasy,
Yeah.
high fantasy
And adventure.
and adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran a pirate campaign not too long ago, and it was just on a regular ship. But literally, my first stop was okay. This is where these people are going to be. They're not only this is not just a map for fighting on or for interacting in. They are, God willing, going to form an attachment to this map. It's going to
Mhm.
be their home.
Yep.
It's almost like the map becomes a character in and of itself. So it's
Mhm.
got to be good.
Yeah. That's kind of how I approach all of my maps. The ones that I make, it's more than just a field to fight on. It's a setting. It's
It
setting the
tells a
mood.
story. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
love your maps so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
always RTing them. I'm like, I love those things.
Thank you. But yeah, it's I think that there is a lot in visual storytelling when you're showing a map. It doesn't have to be a fight. And that's what I encourage my, followers and patrons about is that it can just be an RP encounter, and you set the map not to fight on it. You set the map to for the mood and the ambience and the storytelling.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be combat.
I think you have to make sure that your players aren't the sort of people who see a battle map and go, "Oh, this is an encounter. All right, get the dice out. Let's go for it. I
Yeah.
got my sword." You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, you kind of have to like maybe train them is a bad word to use. I don't know. But
Well, you use shorthand to kind of explain how things are done in your game and in your world, and it's not training them per se. Well, it is. It's training them how to interact in with your world
yeah.
rather than just like saying like, "Oh, well, you're the wrong kind of player. Let's fix that." It's more like, "Okay, how are things done in this world?" And it's kind of hard to do that directly. You don't want to give them like a big block of rules or something. It's more like, how do you sort of subtly communicate to them?
Yeah, and it's about that session 0 too, why they're so
Yeah.
important. This is how I DM. When you see a battle map, don't necessarily be expecting that there's going to be combat. It's more for just, maybe just the positioning, and there's a lot that you can portray with a
I
map.
generally go one further and I say just because it's initiative doesn't mean that it necessarily has to be combat. It just means that what you do over the course of 6 seconds is going to have a major effect on the outcome of this interaction. So I'll do like races and stuff like that that are. Although, yeah, they did end up killing people during that race, so maybe that's a bad example.
But it doesn't. Not every action has to be combat oriented too, right? Even if
Yeah, absolutely.
even if it is an initiative. So I've had it happen plenty where people took their turn to just talk, say
Yeah.
something, or make an action that is not, hit somebody, but go pick up a thing or take a thing out or something like that.
I have a lot of charisma based characters, and at least one of them spends far more of his time trying to stop combat than actually participating in combat.
That's my type of character.
Yeah, yeah, you'd like this character.
Yeah,
He's probably one of my favorites that I've ever played.
yeah.
I'll bother you about him later though, because we're doing this. um,
I love hearing your stories too.
Oh, that's yeah, but I share them with you plenty up on Discord. But this is about you right now.
Aw.
Uh,
Me?
is a little old me. Is there anything else you wanted to get into, like what like storylines or really like great moments that have happened during gameplay that you think are really cool and kind of give your world like a lot of identity, a lot of like a way to stand out?
Yeah, there is one moment that happened in one of my games that ended the first campaign. Um,
Oh my god.
yeah, and I still get shit for it. Uh,
So don't laugh right into the microphone, dude. Come on.
oh man. But it was so dramatic and traumatic,
Oh my
and
god.
I seriously fucked up on it, but I can't go
Oh
back and
no.
change it. But it was like it was just amazing and really bad at the same time. So essentially what happened was the capital city of the continent, the kingdom where the players were, was getting attacked by like dragons and bad forces and stuff like that. And so the players ran into the city, trying to save it. While they were running in, one of the players kind of hung behind and contacted it's that same Felrog character, the warlock,
Mhm.
and he made a pact to deal with his patron that if I die in this city like right now, then do not revive me or something like that, but then,
Mhm.
save the others essentially. So he made the
Oh
deal
wow.
to give up his own life to save the others. And
That's good.
so they run in and the combat started, and the combat was really, really, really hard. And I may or may not have made a mistake of not rolling to recharge the dragon's breath. So kept breathing on the
Oh, wow. Oh, that ratchets up the CR. Whoa.
Yeah. I messed up.
I've done stuff like that before too. You're not alone in that, I promise.
Yeah, it was a big, big, big fuck up, but essentially, through that fuck up, what ended up happening was, the dragon did end up killing that player character,
Mhm.
and they
But that feels poetic though. That feels like a good death because they had already made this pact.
Yeah, and it was so what ended up happening was that he died, and essentially, if he didn't die, they really had no chance of winning at all. Um, but because he died, that pact that he made with his patron, the patron made it so that, everybody else in the party survived and the forces that were attacking the city were now gone. And that character was probably
Oh.
really mourned the loss of this
Oh, that's
character.
so good though. Like I feel like you're getting down on yourself for it, but that's so good. And that's how you ended the campaign?
And that's how I just could not. We had one more session after that where there was a huge funeral for that character, and he was regarded as, basically the realm's hero for, saving everybody. And I cried, I think, through the whole thing. I think other
I'm
people
I'm ca-
cried.
I'm getting feelings. I'm getting feelings right now just from listening to it.
Yeah,
Like that feels like a great way to end it. Like,
yeah.
oh.
And, but yeah, it was I still get shit for it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's fair. Some things we just carry. But
Yeah.
was he the character who was like low key evil
Yep,
or
in the s
so he sacrificed himself he was evil and then he sacrificed himself to save his friends.
yeah, well, in the first campaign, he was slightly less evil, still kinda evil. But yeah, like I said, that player really, really knows how to I don't know, he just oh, man. So yeah, it's just I spent, like, days crying about what happened. It
Oh
was
my
just
god.
so heartbreaking and touching and just oh, man.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I wish I have a character someday who is able to do stuff like who has like an arc like that. That's
Yeah. Yeah, that it was rough. Still rough. It's been years. Still rough.
Mhm. But, that's the stuff that sticks with us, all right? You're feeling the real feelings about it, and holy guacamole. Oh, that's so good. I'm getting endorphins off of that.
Glad you liked it.
All right. So I feel like we're probably finishing up here. Yeah. Like, wow. Thank you so much for sharing all this. Do you? I know you've got social media that you want to shout out, and your Patreon and stuff. So do you want to do that?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
have Patreon where I work full time. I make maps, phase battle maps specifically. It's
Excellent maps.
Thank you. Patreon.com/DWW. I am on Twitter. DemilleW is my handle there. I'm on Reddit and Facebook, but I will not say all of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, basically those are the things, those are the
Mhm.
places where you can find me and yeah.
And you've got the very excellent Discord, which is the happening place to be, who has the most handsome mod on record.
Yes, right here, the one and only Adam right here.
Oh, I was talking about Quick.
Oh, oh.
No. But thank you. Yeah, thanks for telling me about your world. By the way, I should start adding a little caveat at the end. I will steal all of your ideas. They will live on in my worlds, and I will not credit you. So go screw yourself. No, I'm just kidding. Uh,
That's totally fine. Listen, I steal so much from my own world. I have no right to claim it as my own.
That's yeah. I mean, ideas are currency in this and what we've got going on here. Like I said, you're not going to have people coming down on you with trademarks or anything for
Yeah.
your own personal home game. So whatever, be a weasel, be a nasty little world weasel. Nasty
Nasty
little world.
little
I don't know what
world
that one.
weasel. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be a nasty little world weasel.
We should have
Uh,
that as a role in our Discord.
yeah, nasty little world weasel.
Yep.
I like it.
Gotta
Okay.
Alright, well, thank you for having me. I am really actually it was really, really fun to sit down and chat and
Yeah.
thank you, folks.
Yep. It's Dom, folks.
Yeah. Hello. Well, goodbye, I
Hello.
guess, at this point.
Emailed questions, comments, or interview requests can go to sohowwasgame@gmail.com. The intro music is Through the Woods We Ran by Vinsveft. Thanks for listening. What, oh, goodness, we're getting a little bit, wow, all right. Oh, goodness. Sorry, I am so disgusting.
That's okay.